When my husband chuckled and said, "It was just a joke, honey. Don't take it so seriously," I felt a crack form in the foundation of our 30 years together, like the quiet splintering of old wood underfoot. There I was, standing in our cozy kitchen, the scent of chamomile tea still lingering from my morning cup, and his words hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. I wanted to laugh it off, to keep the peace we'd built, but deep down something stirred, a whisper of doubt that wouldn't quiet. Little did I know that joke would unravel everything, leading me to claim an empire he never thought I'd touch. We'd always been the quiet, steady kind of couple. 32 years married, 2 grown daughters who'd moved to the city. A modest brick house on Maple Street with a creaky porch swing. Richard had hung himself the summer our youngest left for college. Mornings smelled of his black coffee and my cinnamon toast. Evenings were soft lamplight, the murmur of the television, his hand resting absently on my knee while we watched the news. He worked construction management, good money, long hours. I kept the books for a small family-owned textile mill downtown, the same one my grandfather helped start back in the 50s. We never fought loud. We never needed to, or so I thought. Started small, the way most cracks do. Richard came home later than usual one Tuesday. Said the crew had hit a snag on the interstate overpass job. I noticed his phone face down on the counter more often, screen lighting up with names I didn't recognize. "Just work stuff," he'd say with that easy half-smile, the one that used to make me feel safe. Then came the jokes, little ones at first. Over dinner he'd tease, "You know, if I ever hit it big, I'd buy us a lake house, but you'd probably run the place into the ground trying to manage it." He laughed. I smiled politely, but the next week he said it again, sharper. "You're good with numbers, sure, but big money? That's man's work, sweetheart." The words landed differently that time, like he was testing something. The real fracture came on a rainy Thursday in October. I was balancing the mill's quarterly ledger at the kitchen table when Richard's phone buzzed beside his untouched plate of meatloaf. He'd stepped out to the garage for just a minute. The screen lit up with a text preview I couldn't unsee. "Can't wait to celebrate closing the deal tonight. You deserve this empire, baby. Red heart." My stomach dropped like a stone through still water. I stared at those words until they blurred. When he came back in, shaking rain from his coat, I asked quietly, "Who's L?" He froze for half a second, barely noticeable, then laughed it off. "Just some client. You know how dramatic they get." But his eyes didn't meet mine. That night I couldn't sleep. The clock on the nightstand ticked louder than his breathing. The next morning I didn't say a word about the text. I poured his coffee the way I always did, black, no sugar, and watched him scroll through emails at the table while the rain tapped against the window like impatient fingers. Inside, my thoughts were racing. I knew the mill's owner, Mr. Hargrove, had been quietly shopping the business around for months. Whispers of a $50 million buyout had floated through the office for over a year. Richard had always dismissed it as small-town dreaming. But that text, "You deserve this empire," kept replaying. By noon I was in the attic, digging through old file boxes. There, tucked inside a folder labeled Personal Investments, I found it. A series of emails between Richard and someone named Lauren Caldwell. Real estate developer, sharp suit, sharper smile in her profile picture. Transfer records. Shell company names. My name nowhere on them. He'd been quietly buying up shares in the mill using our joint savings, then rerouting them through her. The joke wasn't funny anymore. Word travels fast in a town like ours, especially when money and marriage are involved. By the following Monday, the mill was officially sold. $50 million cash deal. Papers signed in a Charlotte boardroom I'd never been invited to see. The new majority owner? Lauren Caldwell, the woman whose heart emoji still burned behind my eyelids. But here's what Richard didn't count on. My grandfather had written a quiet clause into the original company charter decades ago. Any transfer of controlling interest required unanimous approval from the board of directors, and I was still listed as a silent board member with one precious voting share, the one my father had quietly transferred to me the week before he passed. I'd never used it, never needed to, until now. I called an emergency board meeting that afternoon. Richard showed up in his best suit. Tie crooked the way it always got when he was nervous, expecting to charm his way through congratulations. Lauren arrived beside him. Tall, polished, perfume like expensive citrus cutting through the stale conference room air. When I walked in last and took my seat at the head of the table, the room went still. Richard's mouth opened, then closed. I looked straight at him and said very calmly, "Motion to approve the sale is denied. I vote no." Lauren laughed once, short, disbelieving. Richard turned red, then pale. "Ellen," he started, voice cracking on my name. "This is ridiculous. You don't understand how business works." I leaned forward just enough. "I understand betrayal just fine." The board, mostly old family friends who'd known me since I was a girl in pigtails, voted with me. The deal collapsed in under 20 minutes. Lauren stormed out. Richard stayed behind, staring at the table like it might swallow him whole. When the others left, he finally looked up. "Ellen, I'm sorry. It was supposed to be for us." I stood, gathered my coat. "No," I said softly. "It was supposed to be for you." Then I walked out, leaving him alone with the echo of his own excuses. The days that followed were quieter than I expected. Richard moved into the guest room without me asking. He didn't argue, didn't beg. Just packed a small duffel with his work shirts and the electric razor that always left tiny black whiskers in the sink. I heard him pacing at night, floorboards creaking like old apologies he couldn't quite voice. The girls called separately. Word had reached them through a cousin who still worked payroll at the mill. Sarah cried on the phone. "Mom, why didn't you tell us?" I told her the truth. I needed to feel the weight of it alone first. Emily was angrier at him. "He always acted like you were just along for the ride," she said. I didn't disagree. I kept going to the mill every morning, same as always. The scent of cotton dust and machine oil greeted me like an old friend. People nodded respectfully now, not out of habit, but because they knew. I didn't gloat. I simply did the work, balanced the books, approved the new overtime policy the workers had been asking for years. Strength isn't loud. It's steady. Richard tried once, standing in the doorway with his coat still on. "Ellen, can we talk?" His voice was small. I looked up from the ledger. "We're talking," I said. He swallowed. "I was wrong. About everything." I nodded once. "I know." Then I went back to my numbers. He left without another word. Looking back now, I don't hate him. I pity the man who thought a joke could hide a theft of trust. I rebuilt quietly. Stronger coffee in the mornings, the porch swing still creaking under my weight alone. Peace settling like dust after a long storm. Strength isn't revenge. It's choosing yourself when someone else forgot your worth. Looking back now, I don't hate him. I pity the man who thought a joke could hide a theft of trust, who believed my quietness meant weakness instead of patience. These days, the house feels lighter without the weight of unspoken lies. I make cinnamon toast for one, rock gently on that old porch swing at dusk, and listen to the crickets instead of excuses. The mill is thriving, workers smiling more, order steady. I'm not lonely. I'm finally whole. Life has a way of teaching us our own value when someone else tries to steal it. So tell me, sweethearts, if the person who promised to build a life with you tried to build one without you instead, would you have stayed silent? Or would you have found your voice, just like I did? If this story touched something in your heart, leave a comment below and share what you would have done. And if these quiet truths help you feel less alone, consider subscribing so we can keep sitting together like this. Until next time, take care of your heart. It knows more than people give it credit for.